Welcome to this week's episode of Auto Trader Roadmap. I'm your host, Rachael. And this week I'm really excited to talk about a topic which I think in our busy lives as product people, we don't take the time to think about or talk about enough, and that is the subject of career and growth. And hopefully this is going to resonate with a few of you listening today. I know that we're a couple months past appraisal and career discussions that time of year. So let's have a conversation about progression. And helping me today have this conversation, and someone who's going to give us some really good insight into their journey and their career growth in product, is Calum Wiggins. Now, in the first of hopefully many episodes, Calum is a guest host who's external to Auto Trader, and he's joining us from the BBC. We're very excited to have you on the show today. Before we get going, I think it's just worth kind of for you to just kind of introduce yourself and tell the audience, what do you do at the BBC? What is your role?
Thanks, Rachael. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm a group product manager at the BBC, and I cover the area of personalization, which is part of content discovery. So I manage a team of 5 product managers. We do a mix of things, mainly content recommendations and also other types of personalization, so more active personalization, where we give users the ability to tell us more information about what they're interested in, and we personalize off the back of that. And the way that we work is we're a cross-cutting capability, so we develop services and features that then can be used across BBC's main products, so iPlayer, Sounds, News and Sport.
Brilliant. So I always like to ask this question of other people that work in product. How did you end up in the product industry? What made you interested? What was motivated you to want to work in product?
So my first kind of experience in the digital space was in roles that were more marketing focused and more delivery focused. And to be honest, at the time I didn't really know about product. I didn't know product management was a role, but through working as an agile coach for a digital team, obviously started collaborating closely with product managers and started to, like the look of their role and wonder if I could give it a try. And I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to try it as a 6-month secondment, and then liked it enough and was fortunate to be given the role permanently, and then never really looked back from there. Yeah.
I think I had a similar kind of journey. I used to work in data analytics, which I think anyone who's met me in real life knows that I'm not the most analytical person, and this was many years ago. And I think I saw what the product team were doing at the company that I was in, and just you don't look back from these things. I think you just find that spark, and that I think every person that I meet who works in product, I think what enables them to want to move into that industry is they've got that drive to want to make a difference and change. And I think everyone's got that kind of spark in them.
I think for me, I really liked the ability of a product manager had to look at the big picture and really try and get alignment amongst a team of people. That was always something I was kind of passionate about, and the problem solving side of it too. But I think one of the great things about product management is that you get lots of people from different disciplines coming together and entering into product management, and it means that it's a diverse group of people who are product managers, which is really fun and means that lots of people bring different strengths to the table. Yeah,
definitely. And I think it's really interesting because I know a lot about your product career because we used to work at Moonpig together on very similar products, I guess, where we had a lot of cross collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we've always had really honest conversations about our personal development. I remember our Friday catch-ups as well, and that always used to be, I think, one of the highlights of the week, just being able to kind of unload and just talk about how you feel in work and what you might want to progress into. Is this where you kind of, because I know where you're at now, you're actually in a leadership role at the BBC. Is this where, from helping people like me and maybe other junior product managers in the team at Moonpig and other companies, is that where you kind of found your passion? What was it that kind of motivated you to move into leadership? It feels like quite a straight path.
Yeah, I would say I don't think it's felt like a straight path, but I think early on in my career, I realized, or product management career, I realized that part of what I loved about it was getting the most out of people.
Yeah.
And I love product management, but what I love even more is helping other people do product well. And so, yeah, I think very early on, I looked for kind of opportunities to take on mentoring type roles, get involved in hiring. It can be as simple as being an onboarding buddy for someone when they're joining a company. And I think that really helped kind of cement in me that that was where my passion lay. And so I always saw myself going down a line management path at some point, but wanted to build enough experience that I could do that really well, both in the things that are kind of useful when building towards a line management role, but also more broadly in terms of the types of product that I managed and the types of industries that I worked in, and kind of facing having faced different situations myself means that I think I can I have lots to draw upon when helping people in my team and helping others with situations that they might be facing. But I'm interested for you, like, have you thought much about whether you might want to stick on an individual contributor type track, or whether you see yourself going into management in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I'm always thinking about, because I feel like in product, it sometimes feels like, because it's quite a broad spectrum, that in an analogy term, it feels like you're at a buffet and there's like all these like really delicious foods, and you could take a plate of anything. And that's how I feel in product sometimes. There's always something new that excites me. And I think this is probably why this is probably the longest I've worked in a particular sort of industry, is because no 2 days are the same. And I think I'm still figuring it out. I think that it's great that I've come into Auto Trader, and I think I've mentioned like a couple of times on this podcast and, to yourself, like I am quite new to not just like the automotive industry in general, but actually like the specific type of product that I'm working on. Mm-hmm. So I work on Auto Trader's automotive consumer finance experience, and I know nothing about finance coming into this role. It's quite a complex product and feature. And I think that I've always, in every job, I've always just gone where the challenge is. And I think I'm still at that crossroads where it's like, this could turn into anything. And I think I'll just know when I see that opportunity. But what I like about Auto Trader is I think they encourage like squiggly careers. So I'm not just kind of, well, if you're a product manager, the next thing you need to do is be a senior product manager, and then maybe you'll do this. It's like there is more kind of variety to it. And that's what I like. So I think, in a nutshell, I feel like I've said a lot without really saying anything, but I feel like I'm just enjoying where I'm at. I think I'm staying with the challenges, and if that morphs into, me wanting to help and pass it along, because I do have that nature in me, or to go down another path, I think I'm excited to see where that unknown is. But I think it helps to talk to other product managers like yourself in the community, just to kind of get perspective on actually what is out there. I guess, like, what's it like at the BBC? Like, how have the BBC helped you kind of go on that journey into leadership?
So I think it's been a great environment to do that. So I joined the BBC as a senior product manager, so I wasn't in a line management role when I first joined, and then I've stepped into a product leadership role during my time there. And I think one thing that was really clear even before I became a manager at the BBC was how much emphasis the BBC put on really great line management, and that everyone in the BBC should have an excellent line manager with a great relationship with their line manager. And I think the recognition that is important, and therefore allowing managers to invest a lot of time in building those relationships. And a huge part of my job is supporting the people in my team and spending time with them and spending time with the product teams that they're working on. And the fact that time commitment and investment is recognized as part of what I should be doing, rather than having kind of tons of other things on top. There are, of course, other things, but it's seen as a core and really important part of my role. And so it's allowed me, I've been in this leadership role now since October. And so for for that period, I've been able to like really lean into that side of things and develop on that side, which has been really helpful. I've got a very supportive manager who's, you know, very experienced as a manager of product managers, which means that I can draw a lot on his expertise. And I think a lot of my performance is judged on my ability to deliver through others, so deliver with the teams that I work with the product managers that I work with. So I don't have to too much balance like, oh, what am I doing versus what are they doing? Like, we win together. And I think that's something that's really helped this transition.
Yeah. And I guess like you've gone from being an individual contributor where you're working on a product to, you know, line managing 5 people. That is huge. And that's such a shift in a career. Do you miss managing a product? Do you miss like doing the day-to-day, like the feature management? How have you kind of phased yourself away from that and more into this role? Has it been a bit of a learning curve?
It's definitely been a learning curve. I wouldn't say I miss the kind of day-to-day product manager role with a squad at the minute. Like maybe that will come in time, but I think that I still get to see and influence lots of that through my role. You know, I spend lots of time not just talking to the product managers who I work with, but also, so in our teams, it's a mixture of engineers, data scientists, because we work on machine learning driven recommendations. I work a lot with them, talk a lot with them about, you know, experiment design, what we're prioritizing next, our roadmaps, all of that. So, and with the product managers too. And I really encourage them and let them to take the lead in the areas, but then getting involved where in areas that are more complex or where it's particularly strategically important, those kinds of things mean that I think I still do get exposure to the bits of product management that I love, but because I've always been passionate about developing people, getting the most out of a team, being able to focus in on that side of things has been really great. And so I don't know, I think you see some I think it's quite common in product management for some people to jump between kind of more individual contributor and management tracks. That's not really something I've thought about yet, and I could see that happening, but I could also see myself sticking with on the management side of things, because I do think that's where a lot of my passion really lies.
Yeah. Interesting. So like, what, I guess, has there been anything coming into this role that surprised you? Has there been anything where it's not what you've expected?
I would say, I think this is the case with anything, but I think I hadn't appreciated the complexities in a role like mine. I think it always feels like you've got to balance lots of different things. So say a team, a product manager that I work with, and therefore their squad is struggling with a situation. They're in a difficult situation with a stakeholder, or they're struggling to figure out a product vision. I think there's trade-offs to be made around what's best for that individual product manager and their development, what's best for the wider team, and then what's best for like short-term delivery. And sometimes that has to come first. And so I think when faced with situations like that, like I always try and, whenever I can, which I think is most of the time, take a long-term view and try and take more of kind of a passive coaching role, either with the product manager or with the team as a whole, and try and create the space for them to find their own solution and work through things. But there are times when it feels like you're kind of being pulled in the other direction. And I think working out the right thing to do in each of those situations and thinking about how to approach conversations around that in the best way and those kinds of things, there's more complexity, more thought goes into that than I think I'd appreciated before. But it's also incredibly interesting. And, the thing that one of the areas that I think is really intellectually challenging and part of the working through that is part of what makes it interesting and fun.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting what you've mentioned there, where it's like, you could give solutions to people in your team and you could just solve that problem. But I think you've really hit the nail on the head there, where it's like, actually you've coached them through for them to realize themselves. And I think that's another way that you're winning through the people that work for you, or not for you, but within your team. I guess, do you get feedback from them? Do you encourage that? Have you heard anything kind of interesting from them in these, I guess, first few months of being in this job? What are the sorts of comments that you might have heard?
Yeah, I try to get lots of feedback. Yeah. I think it's not the easiest thing. I think it working out the right way to ask for feedback and the right kind of mechanisms to put in place to make it easy for both the people I line manage and the kind of wider area that I lead or co-lead with the other disciplines. Working out how to get feedback from them, I think, is like an ongoing focus. But I do regularly ask. It can be as small as at the end of a conversation asking if one of my reports has found the conversation helpful, or asking how it could be more helpful. And even going back to what we were talking about before with the coaching point, coaching versus solution, like asking up front, like if a member of my team brings me a problem and saying, asking them, do you want a solution now, or do you want more of a coaching conversation, and then working through that. I think that's helpful. I think probably I've always focused a lot on communicating well. But I think one of the things that I have had feedback out on over the few months that I've been doing this is around how the communication that I do is really valued, and even more communication would be better. And we've been going through some kind of organizational changes in the team.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot going on. And so, that's a piece of feedback that I've received and that I'm acting on. But I think constantly looking for that feedback is really important.
Yeah.
I'm interested in, like, Auto Trader, how much do you give feedback to your manager? And are there kind of practices or mechanisms in place that kind of make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I feel really fortunate at Auto Trader, where I think that you are encouraged to be transparent about how you might feel about whether it's a certain project you're working on, or if you've got an opinion of something. And I think that it almost feels like a safe environment. I think I've definitely worked in roles in the past where maybe there's politics behind why you wouldn't say something or give specific feedback, but there's definitely no such thing as closed doors here, or you feel like you can't speak up. So I really value that. And I think that it's interesting that you mentioned the feedback thing, because I think as a product team at Auto Trader, like, we've had a couple of sessions on the art of giving feedback. And I think it's such an interesting topic, because I think feedback's such a broad spectrum, and I think it's how you give it. I think that there's different forms that it might come in. So there might be like, just I've noticed something significant in somebody and I think this might be able to help them, and it feels like you're being a bit unsolicited. I think there's others where, it's like career conversations, stop, start, continue. And I think that I'm a big fan of, like, with the people that I work with, if I see someone's doing a really good job, I always feel like, well, I'd appreciate it if someone said that to me. So I'd always try and spread that positivity and that it's like thanking people. But yeah, I think I'm definitely encouraged here to give feedback. I mean, I'm sure that Damo, my line managers, listening. I like to think that I can give him feedback. I think I probably do on a daily basis. And I think that's key to how you feel happy in work as well. Because, like, we've all remember the times where it's like you've given feedback to, like, a colleague in work, or you've suggested something maybe to your line manager in a previous life, and it's not gone down as well as you thought, and you can remember how you feel out of that situation. So yeah, I think it's really important, but I think it's just I don't know if I've quite mastered how with just colleagues, or how to structure that sometimes. So maybe that's a learning opportunity for me.
I think that safety thing is really key, and definitely, like, part of the solution. I think also lowering the barrier to giving feedback. So because feedback can be small, and the most useful feedback comes at a time where maybe you've taken one step in the wrong direction, or there's a small thing that you correct, that's the best time to receive the feedback and the easiest time to give it, because it's lower stakes. Someone's not been doing the wrong thing for 6 months, and then you tell them, then it feels like a huge thing. And so I think both asking for feedback in that way that makes it small and easy and not like a big serious conversation, and then looking to give it the same way too.
Definitely. I'm quite a self-aware person as well, so if I know that, or I sense that I'm not doing a good job, or I feel like I could have done better at something, I do tend to ask sometimes, whether it's in one-to-ones with my line manager or just with colleagues. If there's a certain meeting, I'll always kind of afterwards be like, in my head I felt this way, but actually can you just, was that okay? I feel like I might have done this. And I think sometimes either it gives you a bit of comfort that, because I do overthink things quite a lot, and sometimes it just gives you that comfort of, you are doing a good job, and you've asked a colleague that you trust, and even if you might have made a mistake or there is an opportunity for you, you're working on it and you're actively seeking to improve that. And I think it's really interesting because I've been chatting to like a few of the product team today, and it's like, as a product person, you do sit on like there's so many skills involved, and I think no one's 100% perfect at every single aspect of being a product manager, and you have strengths more than maybe someone else might have strengths. So I think it's just being open, and like I think if you as a person are open about feedback and like knowing to ask, I think it gives people a bit of confidence that they can talk to you.
Absolutely.
But it's a very brave thing to do. And I remember like when I first started kind of like working in companies, like fresh out of uni, and like someone give you feedback and you dwell on it for like a week. You'd be like, oh God, that's it, my career. Like, and it's so, I think it's just like having resilience through that, and you work through it. And it's like every time you get feedback or, things to kind of work on, I feel like it strengthens you a bit. Yeah,
definitely. And I think that asking signals that you're open to receiving the feedback, which makes it much easier for the feedback giver. So I think that's a really good thing to do.
Definitely. I guess, is there a silver bullet to working in leadership? I'm always curious. Like, I've never worked in like a leadership role, but I'm always curious as to, is there like one perfect way of doing it?
I wish there was. If there is, I've not found it. I'd say the one thing that I've learned to do in this role, which I think I was doing a bit before, but has become even more important with the step into leadership, is being really conscious of how I'm spending my time. Yeah. I think as product managers, we're always prioritizing, but one of the most valuable resources we have, and I think we don't always think about how we prioritize this, is how we use our time. And so I try and I think I do make my time super available to my team. And so we have regular meetings every week, but we also often will meet ad hoc through the week. I'll come along to team sessions. We'll do deep dives on a problem area, or we'll just hop on a call for 5 minutes to chat something through. And I think prioritizing that has really helped me kind of understand where I can be helpful, and has really helped mean that my team members can always move forward on things, and that I know that I'm always available to them to help. And so being aware of the things that you need to do and the things that you are good to do if you have the time, but often you won't, and that being okay, I think, is important. And I think getting clear expectations from my manager around that has been helpful, and kind of understanding the boundaries of what am I actually responsible for in my role. What am I going to be held accountable for? What things, if they go wrong, are people going to be looking to me? And then what things are the responsibility of others, or something that I am jointly responsible for with someone else or with a group of people, and using that to help guide where I invest the time that I have each week, I think has really helped me have a manageable workload. I feel really busy, but not too busy, but also have an impact in the areas that matter most.
Do you think setting boundaries helps as well, where it's like where to kind of cut off like the time taken on things? because obviously like you could just go on forever. I think even as a product manager, like you could definitely maximize however many hours there are in a week. Like you could just endlessly do that. Is there a way that you know when you can kind of set that boundary and cut that off?
Yeah, I think I try to stick really to like, you know, contracted hours, and I think that's like an important and valuable thing for a leader to be doing, because it signals to the team that's, you know, that's the expectation of them. And I also have a little baby, so that helps with that. But I think knowing there are only so many hours in the week, and thinking about how you spend them best is the right thing. And I think you're spot on with boundaries. I think I'm someone who will care about the success of the wider area that I'm a part of, the wider department. In BBC we call them product areas, the wider product area. And so there's always stuff you could be doing within your team and outside of it, but being really conscious of, you know, these are the things that I'm directly responsible for. This is the kind of slightly wider sphere that I want to try and influence, and prioritizing things in that space and the most important things in that space has definitely helped.
Yeah. I like the fact as well that you've mentioned, you know, kind of like you are here as like it is contracted hours, and at the end of the day it is a job, but it's something that you care a lot about as well, and it's like maximizing the time that you have during the week. And I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, I love my job, and that means that I try to give the absolute most I can to my job and to the BBC in the time that I'm working. And I think that's the best way for me to perform the best I can and do the best for my team and for the whole organisation. And I think as you step into a leadership role, modelling that for others is a really good thing to do too. Definitely.
I mean, I think there are going to be people that might be listening to this episode and they might be considering themselves like, you know, I want to make that move into leadership, or I want to make that next big step. I'm after that promotion, I'm after that next challenge in my role. I guess for those that want to move into product leadership, do you have any advice? I feel like that's a very broad question, because I'm sure there's so much advice and very specific things, but I guess as just in general, what are the things that have really helped you, those key points that have helped you to be really successful and get to that aspiration that you've got now, that goal?
Yeah, I think it is hard to give advice to everyone in every situation, but I think there was perhaps a time where I imagined it would be quite a linear path. And I don't think in reality it's felt like that. I think I've worked on a whole bunch of different products, and that's actually helped me now. I've made this transition, and probably, you know, it put me in a good position to be a good candidate for the role too. So I think my general career advice is make sure you're enjoying what you're doing and keep looking for things that you'll enjoy doing. And I think that will help you build up a wealth of experience that then will be useful to you when the opportunity arises to step into a leadership role. I would encourage anyone to I wouldn't encourage anyone to rush it. You know, I think it's worth building up some experience that then you can take with you into that position. And part of it's around thinking around the type of leader you want to be, and drawing on, having worked with lots of different leaders in my career so far, I'm able to draw on the bits of their style and the things that they did that I like, and really kind of play into that as a leader. And the other thing I would say is there's loads of opportunities to get experience for things that will help you when you step into a line management role, like mentoring, coaching, being involved in hiring, helping onboard new people. Looking for those early and starting to explore early the kind of skills that you might need to develop to do well in those things will then set you up for success when you do get the opportunity.
Definitely. I think that's something I've been doing recently as well, is like asking people who might be in roles that I'm interested in, or, you know, I'm just curious about what people do. Like I'm quite a nosy person, so I'm like, oh, what are you working on? And I think it's just great to get people's honest opinion and how they feel like their day-to-day job is. And that gives me a perspective of, right, do I feel that that's right for me, or something that I'd want to progress into? And I think, again, this is what I like about Auto Trader, is you could approach anyone and no one's going to stand in your way if you are curious about a certain topic or subject matter area. And I'm sure it's the same at the BBC. I think there's just like, to me, I feel like the BBC is like a huge organisation as well. I bet there's so much to kind of learn and go after, and I think it'll be a similar dynamic. Like, you know, you could have a squiggly career, or you could, you know, get insight into what somebody does. I think it's really interesting as well. You've mentioned, like, you know, looking at the leaders around you, how you take pieces of what you like about them best, how they effectively do their jobs. And yeah, there's like quite a few people in the leadership team here at the product team at Auto Trader, and yeah, they're very different in their ways of working, but they're all brilliant at what they do. And I think for me, it's like, it gives me a bit of reassurance that it's like, it's okay to be your own person, and that's okay. You don't have to, it's not comparing yourself to somebody else, it's just realising the strengths in others. So I thought that's a really good point that you've made there.
Definitely. There's lots of different ways of being a great product manager, and there's lots of great ways of being a product leader, and thinking about how you can draw and play into those different things in different situations, and also be flexible with different team members and flexible with the situations that arise. I think the breadth of experience you can get and exposure to other things, like you say, by talking to others is a really good way to get that.
And it gets your face out there as well. I think I always know if people come to me for advice or they're interested in something, firstly, I feel like I've helped them, but then I know in future this person is, you know, they're passionate about maybe this area of the business. Maybe I might want to invite them to a meeting or just tell them more about what I might be working on. And I think it just helps, like, just sharing like what you do every day.
Yeah, and I think that kind of, even like more informal mentoring kind of relationships can really help you explore, if you like that kind of thing, and think about whether you want to go into a management route. You know, so many people want to get into product management that anyone who is a product manager will have interesting things to say to people who are interested in that career. And so I think at any level, I'd encourage people to look for opportunities to do mentoring, do coaching, teach people about your area, and use that to learn about other companies, other areas within your company. Definitely.
Brilliant. So thank you, Calum, for joining us and being our guest at Auto Trader for this week's episode.
Thanks for having me. It's been great to be here. Really great conversation.
Cool. And yeah, we will see you next week. Do not forget to subscribe and like our YouTube channel, and make sure you get the notification icon on. Also, do not forget to follow us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to rate us. Give us feedback.